Let's see. Just a little bit here. I think that does it. Back up a little bit. And there we go. Now, this is a test. No, I think it's the first time I've ever done two in a day. I'm not sure. But I entitled this the ATM Society. And I will be talking about this off and on in different types of formats. I had at one time considered, or maybe still considering, writing a book on the subject. I'm not sure if I want to spend time doing that. Uh, but the essence is actually tied in to the prior episode, which makes it easier to piggyback on when I was talking about the behavioral conditioning that takes place with the aspects or with the introduction of environmental controls, of stimulus. And stimulus can be mental as well. Don't think of physical, but mental as well. And then you have the response. Again, the responses can be mental or physical. And then we have the reward, which reinforces the behavior in one way or another, or de-incentivizes the behavior. And it's a funny thing, when I was in college, I started college in 77, fall of 77 in Columbia, Missouri. It was a new and different town for me, but I've actually had arrived from Peru. I didn't come from another state. I had been living in Peru for most of my time. I did have a brief interruption and attended my sophomore year in American high school in New Jersey on the western side. In a place called the Delaware Valley Regional High School, as a matter of fact, is where I went for that 1 year. I met an interesting group of characters there that I stayed in contact for a little bit with the antiquated mode of letter writing, buying stamps and putting it in an envelope and sending it out to somebody. And I would write to my teenage friends and write goofy things, and dumb ideas and share them and laugh and drawings and what have you. But I did finish high school in Peru, and then we returned to the United States, and the whole process of ending up in Missouri was in and of itself something different. But there I was in a completely new town and knew absolutely no one. But I started my classes and I lived off campus. And talk about some of the stories on that at some other point, because there's definitely some interesting adventures there as well. In my first year, especially in my first semester, more so. Where I lived in a house, old Victorian 2 or 3 story home in the basement that I shared a kitchen and a bath with 3 other guys. We each had our own door for our room with a padlock. But anyway, there's a class that I took, and it was with Professor Johnson, Walter Johnson. It's interesting how I remember his name. I mean, he really struck a chord. I never spoke with him, or and he actually conducted his lessons, which are basic econ class, and with all the concept, guns and butters and all that good stuff. On a stage, he was very very much a performer, and I think that there were, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 students in the class. I believe. I don't know. I don't remember, but it was a large auditorium. and I enjoyed watching him. He was a very entertaining speaker, and I wish I was smarter back then. I wasn't dumb, but I would have liked to have been smarter. Um, and he talked about how someday in the future there would be these little plastic cards and that people wouldn't carry money around anymore. So, he was no dum dum. He definitely knew some things, and he was able to share some wisdom during his class. And I can't remember anything in particular, but I think it's sort of more of a kind of a subliminal type of thing, something that I sort of assimilated and processed with regards to him, his demeanor, and his delivery, and how he did things. And that card, that's the ATM. And it gives us an immediate reward. We go to the ATM, we insert the card, and it gives us money, and money gives us pleasure in different ways. And it buys us food, and it buys us alcohol, and it buys us drugs, and it buys us clothes, and it buys us things that help us be who we are, or who we think we are, or who we want to be. It's not always that clear, is it? Or what people's motivations are, whether their motivations are actually strictly from emotion, which is a horrible, horrible way to be motivated. And I don't care if it's a positive or negative emotion, but to simply be motivated by emotion is not good. And that's what I would refer to as sort of the feral aspect of our humanity, is when we uh, deny critical thinking, and when we deny logic and reason in favor of superstitious nonsense. That's bad. There's no virtue in having faith in silliness and pathetic silliness and dumb silliness and incoherent silliness. There's no pride. It doesn't take courage to be an idiot. I should know. um, so yeah, we get immediate rewards, and so at this point in time, we're sort of our own victimizers. We eat our own flesh because we reward ourselves for very bad things sometimes. And that what that does is just encourage us to do more bad things, which, and bad is all relative. What's bad and good as far as my book goes. We make these definitions ourselves, or people make them for us. Or we adopt or we adjust, and we do what we think is the right thing to do, even though we don't necessarily know if it is or not. And some of us even, have regrets and feel shame. I've done that. I'm no different from anybody else. Um, but the ATM Society, and it's very, very, very bad, because we basically want to reward ourselves constantly for bad behavior. This is why I have basically decided that I don't want to have or take any part of traditional rituals, where I'm gifting things or observing artificial holidays that have, been created in the past, under completely different circumstances that have no applicable value to any of the essential needs of my life. I mean, 4th of July, Labor Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, Easter, just name whatever holiday you want. I'll ignore it. I won't observe it, and I won't go through any extra steps to do it. And the same goes for birthdays, except for, deceased loved ones, people who aren't around anymore. I'll remember them and remember the days that they were born more than I like to remember the days that they died, just because it's a lot nicer to know when they came or when they arrived. more than when they left. So yeah, in sports, fanaticism, basketball, hockey, football, baseball, soccer, badminton, tiddlywinks, golf, volleyball, blah blah blah, Olympics. None of that really, you know, mm, interests me that much. Yeah, I might catch snippets of some things, especially soccer or tennis, both of which I kind of still enjoy uh, touching a little bit. Tennis more so because it's not as physically demanding. But I do like soccer as well, and I have tried it not too long ago in December, as a matter of fact. And I was playing with some kids for a little bit. I was a little rough though, and I had to kind of pull myself away. Not real rough, but just accidentally. I kind of fell and tumbled into a kid. Whoops. So yeah, don't do that anymore. So no birthdays, not a lot of TV either. Not so much social media or phone. I mean, it kind of looks like I do, but I know that a lot of times I kind of like to try to make an impression more than I like to be on there. I just like to, kind of say things that or do things just that touch a little bit more substantive than most things, and there's other people that do that. And I tend to follow them as well. It's shallow, just pictures and stuff like that, being happy. Yeah, not that interesting to me. Uh, so yeah, football, that's probably one of the ugliest sports. I don't mind and sports like NASCAR and all that nonsense. It's all nonsense. Trucks and cars, that's all nonsense too. I have no interest in that. I don't see why that would be. I like animals. Animals are nice. Uh, I like scenery. Scenery's cool. Parks and shit like that. Going out and doing things like that. That's fun and enjoyable. Every now and then a meal, but not in your standard like box cutter or whatever you call them, or cookie box, or franchises or anything like that. Although occasionally, because of Groupon, I will get a coupon and get a pretty decent meal at a restaurant that I normally wouldn't go to under any circumstance. What else do I do? It's just more of what I don't do. I'm not really a Democrat, or definitely not a Republican. I can think of more reasons not to be a Republican than not to be a Democrat, and that's why I would rather ally myself with Democrats. Although there's a lot that I don't like about them either, and just that's everybody monetizes everything. Everybody monetizes everything. So even if you have it's like, oh, I'm an atheist, I'm going to monetize that, or I'm a Democrat, I'm going to monetize that. Everybody thinks about making a living. I understand it. Of course, I get it. I do. And it's not that I'm independently wealthy or anything like that. I do choose to be poor. I'm actually wondering, where am I going to eat? I have a cracker. Oh, no, I finished my crackers. But that's not important to me, because it'll get itself taken care of at some point in time. But the ATM Society is really, totally into its comfort. And of course, that's manifested in the obesity, which is a lot of complacency, and in our softness. There's a lot of softness. There's a certain element of softness that's always good to have. And I'm not saying that's, being soft is bad or anything like that. But given the circumstances that we have to deal with, it does kind of put us at a disadvantage. And it might be beneficial to find more things that can improve our strength, our individual strength, our mental strength, not body, not necessarily physical body strength, but that is helpful as well, but mental strength. Actually, and when you work those things in tandem, I think that you do have the ability to achieve a lot greater success. But the ATM Society, again, is something that looks to reward itself more than it really needs to. It tries to pat itself on the back more than it needs to. It tells its eyes lies more than it needs to. It looks itself in the mirror and sees something else more than it needs to. The ATM Society is a very bad society. We think it's good, and it's not. It's not. Now, I don't have an answer per se. I mean, I do know that what's worked for me, and that has been working on myself and helping myself feel stronger, and not taking any medicines anymore or anything like that. Not being in the habit of any type of schedule by day or night or anything like that. It's just thinking, just free, just as few of the shackles as I can find. And then unfortunately, a lot of times that includes family members, and the closest ones are the ones that understand the least, because they're the ones that are impacted, because they're the ones that have this idea in their mind about what somebody is supposed to be like, and it's not always a fair standard that people will place in their own heads as far as what you should be. It's not fair a lot of times, and we need to be able to draw that line, and sort of, there is an autonomy that we need to defend, and we shouldn't rely on anybody to defend us for that. But there are people that need to have help. I will not, so, but there are some of us that don't need help, but act like we do, and that's another story altogether. So anyway, those are my thoughts just for now. Of course, if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the comments. I'll check it out at some point, and I'll try to drop an answer if I have one. In the meantime, don't forget that the past is an illusion and the present is confusion. The future is your decision. So let's go have it.